Welcome to the video, and in today's video I want to talk about mobile photography, more specifically iPhone photography, and that is purely because I shoot with an iPhone, but some of these principles can be applied across the board to any kind of mobile phone that has a camera. In the past few years, the cameras on mobile phones have become so impressive, and the quality that you can get out of them is really quite amazing, and it can enable you to capture the day-to-day, make the ordinary look great when you're on the move and you don't have a camera with you. I'm not going to say that it's a comparison or it is comparable to a full frame mirrorless camera, for example. It just isn't. The sensor is not as big and it can't take as much information in. However, if you know how to optimize it and utilize it to its best ability, you can actually get some really amazing images at really good quality. To be honest, in more recent years, I've used it quite a lot for my behind the scenes shooting, as well as times when I just don't have my camera on me, or I want to be a little bit less conspicuous with a smaller setup and get some really nice images still, for example, in social situations. And there's been many times when I've been cycling home from work and I haven't got my camera with me, and there has been a cracker of a sunset, and if I hadn't have got my phone with me, I never would have captured that moment. I'll overlay some images throughout this video just to give you an example of what kind of things I've managed to capture with a phone, but it always blows me away what you can get. It's important to know the limitations of your phone, and with trial and error, you'll work out what kind of conditions your phone works best in. Typically, it works well in good lighting situations, although they are getting better in low light conditions. And if you can just adjust a few settings and have a few creative thoughts in mind, which I will share with you in a minute, I think you can really optimize what you can get out of your mobile phone, and the world is your oyster. So let me get into it. First things first, I'll just mention a few settings that I would adjust or make sure are toggled on so that you get best quality out of your phone camera. This will depend a little bit on which model of phone you have. I have the iPhone 14 Pro and have these settings on. Firstly, I would go into formats and camera capture, and I would pick most compatible. This means you get no compression of the image, and it is not set by default, so just make sure that is toggled on. Secondly, I would choose the photo capture to be set to Pro RAW Max. This will give you the highest resolution of image, and it gives you a 48 megapixel image, and RAW gives you the best control in post-processing and editing. Of course, this is going to give you absolutely massive files, but that is something I'm willing to take as a compromise to have the best quality that I can. I am quite diligent in ensuring that I delete things as I go so that I don't max out my storage. You might either want to do that, or you can toggle it on and off within the camera app itself. Just in the top corner there, you can toggle the RAW Max mode off so that you can switch between if you feel you're shooting something that doesn't actually need a 48 megapixel image. For me, I just leave it on all the time because I know I'll forget to do it, and I have done that, and I found it a bit annoying, especially if I've got a really good photo and have left it out of RAW mode. After that, I would ensure that you have the preserve settings all toggled on, because this ensures that all of these settings stay the same every time you open the camera app and shoot. There's nothing worse than going back in, forget that you haven't switched something on again, and then you're back to the basic default settings. So just leave it all preserved and you'll know that you've got the settings the same every single time. A couple of other things I would mention: in the composition section, I have the grid and the level switched on. I find these really useful to making sure that I've got a nice composition, whether I want to put something on the thirds or in the middle, and the level is actually really good as well. Predominantly, I would recommend using the 24mm main camera. This will give you the best quality. I absolutely love the wide angle lens, but you will find you lose a bit of quality, especially around the edges. I would turn off prioritize faster shooting. Now this depends on what you're doing. Sometimes if I'm on my bike, I have it on actually because I really want to fire off a few shots, but by default I would keep it off because, again, we're going for the highest quality images. Other than this, I would just say to experiment with your phone as much as possible. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's really important to start to learn the limitations of what you can achieve with it. I love experimenting with the different lenses, and this is one thing I think is so good with mobile photography because it's so versatile all in one package. You have all of these different lenses. Now, I would say with an iPhone specifically to try and stick, and probably across the board actually, try and stick to the set lenses. So on the iPhone, you've got that 24mm lens in the middle, which I've already mentioned is the best quality. So stick to that, or go to the 0.5, but try not to go in the middle because then you're just using a digital zoom in between. I would prefer to just use the dedicated physical lens. So if you stick to the set parameters, so you've got the 0.5, the 24mm and the telephoto, and the telephoto comes up to a 77mm equivalent, and the wide is at 13mm. I really love the wide lens. As I've mentioned, you get some really cool perspectives and you can really get creative with it. It's quite cool for taking a selfie with, actually. I would recommend to try that. I do a lot of my selfies, especially with someone else in it. It does take a little bit of an art form to get the angle right, and you can use the volume rocker to take the shot. But if you hold it out in front of you like this, slightly bent arm and up a tiny bit, you get a really cool perspective because you get loads of the background in. So if you're in a really cool place, you capture a lot more of it. You might have to take quite a few shots and review them after to see how they look, but it's something I've tried quite a few times. Also worth experimenting with the telephoto. It's probably my least used lens because I just don't feel like the quality is quite there, although it is getting better. As I say, at 77mm, you can really zoom in quite tight and get something quite far away, but predominantly I stick to the 24 and the wide. I will always edit my iPhone shots, as I will my camera shots, to be honest with you, and I do a little bit of post-processing in Lightroom. If you're interested to know how I edit my phone pictures, do drop a comment below and I can make a video on that, because it's actually quite different. I probably put more of an edit into my phone photos than I do my camera photos. I end up using a lot of masks to really hone in on the subject, because you don't get a lot of depth of field on a phone camera unless you're taking a close-up shot, and that should be mentioned that is really improving as well. I don't tend to use the portrait mode anymore. I literally just use a standard camera and say I wanted to take a picture of this coffee cup here. If you hold it close enough, you will find that the background will blur and it looks pretty impressive. The drop off of bokeh is actually pretty wild for just a phone photo. So give it a whirl. Experiment, don't be afraid to try new things, and any questions on phone photography, drop them below, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Happy shooting, take your phone out, get some shots, and make the everyday look great, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.